Honourable members, I will also want us to investigate whether I had relations of any kind with Gundu Wealth. We must start with the appreciation that, as I indicated, they are not a contractor and they did not receive payment. They were appointed to provide services through a procurement process, and this was done through committees of council, which are overseeing procurement, and as per Section 52 of the MFMA, which mandates the municipal manager to report the financials of the municipality every quarter. A report was brought to council to note the appointment of Gundu Wealth Solutions. Did I receive any improper benefits? I did not receive any improper benefits from the contractor, as indicated. Again, I would want to give a bit of some context. When one is appointed as an office bearer in public service, maybe I must start that before being a public office bearer, I've worked for Limpopo provincial government for about 15 years. From a position of an assistant director, right all the way when I resigned, I was an acting DDG. Having moved from Safety, Security, Agriculture, Office of the Premier, in fact, Office of the Premier, then Agriculture, Department of Public Works. Moved into being an office bearer in the public service. It becomes difficult to obtain employment outside public service and even to assist family members due to nepotism and favoritism or any other explanation. But also, political positions by their very own nature are short-term. And that necessitated me that I investigate the feasibility of commencing such a business, and a coffee shop seemed a feasible option so that I could create employment opportunities for myself and my next of kins. The coffee shop employed between 8 to 12 people, depending on some of the work that was contractual, and the staff may not be permanent on a day-to-day basis. And I made this consideration precisely because to ensure that I have got an alternative when the office, public office life comes to an end. Initially, I intended to withdraw partially from my retirements savings, which were coming from the pension of being an employee of the state for about 15 years. I experienced difficulties because of the cost and the charges. If I recall very well, the pension was somewhere at around 800,000 odds, and the percentage of tax and all that was making the whole idea not feasible. I asked Gundu for advice on any other idea on how best I could finance. And I was advised against the the withdrawal of the retirement that I spoke about. And in those discussions, Gundu then informed me and advised of a loan product that they have that I could access. In consideration for the options loan, Gundu was not a service provider, as I had said. There existed no conflict in my view in securing a loan from Gundu. I took a decision to proceed with the business, and the following steps ensued. In September 2016, on the 26th, I concluded the registration of T5, which was coming from a previous company that I'd incorporated, which was called Golden Threads. On the 30th, I signed with both Gundu and Recovet. Recovet was the owner of the coffee shop where I was purchasing from. Following that loan agreement, 575,600 was paid to Recovet by Gundu Wealth Solutions. The capital advance was repaid as provided for in the loan agreement by 3 installments. And the installments were paid from the FNB business account of T5 and Sylvanas events to Gundu Wealth Netbank account on the following dates. The 9th of October 2020, the 12th of November 2020, and the 7th of January 2021. Chair, I would like to contextualize the reasoning and the timing for the payment. T5 and Golden Threads carried for about 3 years the establishment of the coffee shop. In 2019, in October, was the exact time that Sylvana was able to have its account, now trying to be running above board in terms of not being dependent on T5 and Golden Threads. And that was 2019. Preparations were made between myself and Gundu to commence with the payment after the coffee shop had been fully registered in 2019. Prior that, the business T5 to assist the operation of the coffee shop, it was servicing recovered on the other portion that couldn't be paid from the 575, including rental, including equipment, which some recovered left and it had to be paid. In March 2020, in fact, in February or somewhere there, we started getting calls from the Office of the National Treasury and Provincial Treasury, meeting the 12 municipalities and informing us that the bank will be going under administration and they would want to commence with the forensics. I informed Mr. Rallium, because I was now supposed to start with the repayment, that I will hold the repayment until the Limpopo provincial investigations are concluded. In total, it was 12 municipalities. If you go to their report, I think Polokwane is chapter 13 of the report. The investigation took about 18 to 20 months. I may not be exact in terms of calculations. But on the 9th, the very same day I made the payment, was the day I officially received the report in hand as the mayor from Limpopo Provincial Treasury. Because the investigation were concluded and I had fully participated, those who have got experience of understanding that you will then be called, you will have to provide documents, you will have to provide municipal council resolutions, etc. That process was undertaken and all of us participated, from the investment management committee to the executive mayor. I made the first payment on that day, on the 9th of October 2020. And again on the 12th of November, and the final one, totaling around 849,000, with an interest calculated at about 11.2% or so at the time. So in excess of about 250 was the interest that was paid to Gundu. I've touched a bit on the Limpopo Treasury investigations. It is important that I indicate to the House that the investigations will obviously come with remedial action and corrective measures. Paragraph 18.92 of that report didn't spare me, as the executive mayor, from a corrective measure. and I'm quoting it, it is recommended that corrective action be considered against the executive mayor, Ting Kadimeng, in that she failed to comply with Section 52 of the Municipal Finance Management Act. Considering that Polokwane municipality did not incur any losses, and I, as a mayor, was proactive enough to order the withdrawal of investment, as I indicated, even before National Treasury wrote to us, and the money of council was paid back with its interest into the municipal account. Upon response, we were then taken back again into the Standard Bank, which is the municipal account, by the forensic to go and prove together with the bank as to whether the money was paid truly into the bank, and that step was undertaken. And the corrective measure was sanctioned to go either to University of Pretoria or the University of Witwatersrand, which are the only ones that offers, jointly with LG SITA, that is local government SITA, a program which is designed by National Treasury called Municipal Finance Management Act. In short, we call it MFMP. It's a 2-year program. I took this corrective measure very seriously. I commenced with my studies the following year when universities opened in January. I registered. It was a block program. I will leave Polokwane every week to come and attend a block of the entire Municipal Finance Management Act in its entirety. I actually concluded, honorable members, this program after I was even no longer a mayor when I was a deputy minister. So ordinarily, if I had not taken that corrective measure seriously, I would have said, well, I'm no longer the mayor, I'm no longer on MFMA, but I will leave it. But I stuck to that 2 years. I concluded the program. I'd like to draw to a close and affirm that, one, there was no improper relationship. I requested for a loan. A loan was advanced. Interestingly, today I saw something circulating which I'd never heard, which indicates even from the other side that the transaction was Silvana's loan. Much has been said about the conflict of interest to the position I now hold. The Department of Justice and Constitutional Development plays no role in decision-making by the NPA on who to prosecute or not. The office I hold does not have a direct relationship in instructing or convincing the NPA on how to act on their mandate. On the matter of taking the loan, I've dealt with the allegations of conflict. And my understanding was that if you ask for assistance on someone who doesn't have a direct bearing or payment from the municipality, it is possible, and I repaid it back. When the president informed me that he is assigning me to this department, the issue of conflict of interest actually that crossed my mind was not this issue. It was an issue that I am, on behalf of my family, sitting in court on the case of my sister, that the NPA has placed charges on allegations of murder to people. That's what crossed my mind. I discussed it with the president as well. And we both came to a conclusion that it is a matter that is already sitting in court. I have got no say in it. It will live its life and it will come to its conclusion. And I decided that I will take the request by the president, because I also do believe that's what even the person that I thought I shouldn't take the responsibility because of her, would have wanted me to put the people of South Africa first. And it was on those bases that I accepted the request by the president. And having convinced myself that even in that case, I cannot, will never be able to influence the NPA on how to do its work. And I wouldn't want to elaborate on the commitment I gave them in my first meeting on my willingness to assist and my willingness to be able to cooperate all the time on any needs that they have and work that they would want to do. Honorable Chair, thank you very much. The report, as I had said, give a bit of more detail than the summarized version that I had. And I would like to thank honorable members once more for the opportunity to come and talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Members, that is the long and short of the report by the Minister. Will therefore afford opportunity to all members who wish to interrogate the report, ask questions, make comments, make submissions in relation to the contents of what has been reported. Honorable Breitenbach, Honorable Dana, Honorable Trollip, Honorable Swart, Honorable Sotetsi, Honorable Mutau, Honorable Matafa, in that order. Honorable Kopla. Am I pronouncing it properly?
Klopper.
Klopper. Yeah, Honorable Klopper, Honorable Nomvalo, Honorable Mkwebane, Honorable Ngaba. In that order. Okay. Honorable Breitenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to everybody, and good morning to the Minister and the Deputy Minister. Minister, thank you for coming to the committee. I'm sure it has not been easy. I've been there, I've done that, I've got the T-shirt. I know that it's not easy. So thank you for coming. You also, I know, understand that this committee, and I speak for myself and my colleagues, but I'm sure I speak for all the members of the committee. We're doing a job that we have to do. We have oversight. This is in the public interest, and you'll understand that there's no personal animus here. So I have a number of questions. I'll try to limit myself so that everybody else can also have a chance, but frankly, I could keep you busy for the rest of the day, but I'll try not to. My first question, Minister, is as the Mayor of Polokwane, what was your involvement in making investments? I understand that there's a structure there, there's a municipal manager, there's people who do the finances and make decisions, but as the Mayor, the buck stops with you really for everything. And so how involved were you and how much did you know about investments in general and in this one in particular? Mr. Chair, I think it might be useful if we get answers to questions as we ask them, as opposed to asking 2 or 3 or 4 and waiting for answers, because the answers may erase other questions.
That will take us the whole day on Breitenbach. I get the spirit, but let's ask. They are going to note and they are going to respond to.
I think it's less effective, but anyhow. Then, bearing in mind that you're the Mayor and that you have the buck stops with you, I'm making the assumption that you then know quite a lot about what goes on in the municipality, that you make it your job to understand what's happening, and more particularly with the finances. It's important. And so you would have known about this this investment at VBS. And my question is really this, VBS is not a normal bank, it's a mutual bank, or was a mutual bank, in which municipalities were not authorized to invest. And you do in your statement make mention of other investments, Standard Bank, Nedbank, ABSA, investing. Those are proper banks, not a mutual bank. And you were not entitled as the municipality to make investments in a mutual bank. So the investment itself is unlawful. You also say that Ganda Wealth Solutions is not a typical contractor in the strict sense of the word, in that the municipality did not pay them for their services rendered. Well, that may or may not be so, I don't know. I accept what you're telling me. What is clear from the analysis of the money is that they were certainly richly remunerated by VBS for garnering investments and made a vast amount of money, doing very little, also paid huge kickbacks. And that's not in dispute. Huge kickbacks to the people who made the investments. So the whole scheme was a cynical, sick and dodgy scheme to defraud the poorest of the poor people, particularly in Limpopo, and is unconscionable. So Ganda is not a charitable organization that does things because of their love of advancing the cause of South Africans. They did it to make dodgy money, and they made dodgy money, and lots of it. Now, it's the dodgy money that's the problem, because all of their money was dodgy money, and you were the recipient of some of that dodgy money. So, you know, my question to you is, why do you say that because they were not paid, they were not a typical contractor? Of course they were. They were just paid elsewhere. And that being the position then, why did you seek personal financial advice from an entity that was in fact doing business with the municipality of which you were the man? The head honcho, the top of the pyramid, where the buck stopped with you, and they knew it. So of course I'd be happy to accommodate you because we've seen what kind of investments were being made for them and the benefits that they accrued from those investments. So there is a conflict of interest. And my question is, why did you not see it? Why did you approach them for advice? They're also styled as Ganda Wealth Solutions, Ganda Wealth Management. Who knows what they were and what they did. But what they were not was a registered service provider or a registered financial services provider. And so they were, in fact, not able to just give loans in the normal course of their business. It wasn't the normal course of their business. In fact, very few loans were made. Lots of kickbacks were paid. All of the stolen money was, you know, dissipated. Very few loans were made. Yours was one of the very few. So why would you have negotiated a loan with an entity doing business with your municipality who was not a registered financial services provider? And did you at any stage attempt to get an arm's length, proper, ordinary commercial loan from a bank? Your own bank, wherever you banked. Sure, you would have been able to get a loan from your own bank. So why did you get a loan from them? What was so attractive about doing business with Ganda, particularly bearing in mind the extortionate, really extortionate, if your figures are correct in paragraph 27 of your statement, of the interest on a loan of 575,600, you paid interest of 274,399. That's practically 50%. And in fact, it works out to 47%. 47% interest on a loan that in the bigger scheme of things is not even huge. Why would you enter into such a one-sided transaction when you could have gone to a real bank and gotten a real loan at a real interest rate? It makes no commercial sense whatsoever, none. And so it makes the whole transaction, forgive me, look exceptionally suspicious. Also, the timing thereof is exceptionally suspicious. Money flows from the municipality to VBS, money flows from VBS to Ganda, money flows from Ganda to the purchase of the coffee shop, all in the space of a very short period of time. It may be a coincidence, but in a long time of operating in the criminal justice system, I've learned to be very suspicious of a confluence of coincidences. And normally, they point to trouble. And I see no reason to have less suspicion about this entire matter. So if you could help me with that. I'm also then interested in the name of the investment group, T5 Investment Group. Where did the name come from? Was it a shelf company? And if not, what does the T5 stand for? Your name is Thembi. Is it related to you somehow? Have you got 5 investment companies? Is that what the 5 is for? I would be interested to know more about the name. Then I'll move off of that subject because I'm sure that my colleagues have questions and will cover it, but I must deal with the glaring current conflict of interest that certainly exists, whether you want to see it or not, Minister, with respect. That certainly exists between yourself and the National Prosecuting Authority. We all remember, some of us more painfully than others, the demise of Mr. or Advocate Vusi Pikoli as the National Director of Public Prosecutions when Jackie Selebi was prosecuted, and he wouldn't back down. He was instructed to not proceed with the prosecution by the Minister of Justice. He refused to do that because Vusi Pikoli is an honorable man. And he lost his job because of it, much to the absolute destruction of the NPA. Because what happened at the NPA after Mr. Pikoli left could not have happened while he was there. And I think we all know that, and I think you know that too. And he was fired then because there was this supposed breakdown of a relationship between himself and the Justice Minister, who at the time was Minister, I think, Mabandla. Now, if it is so as you want us to believe here, that there's absolutely no possibility of a Justice Minister having any influence over the NPA, and I agree with you, there should be no such influence, and the NPA should tolerate no such influence, none. It's a non-thing, it should never be allowed, but we live in the real world, and we've seen this happen. And so it's not true that the Justice Minister does not have influence over the NPA, even if it's a very subtle influence. Of course you do. And how you choose to exercise it is, of course, up to the Justice Minister. And I've not got any reason to suggest that you've done anything untoward in that regard, and I'm not suggesting it. But perceptions, Minister, are everything. And the public and myself see the justice system as a pyramid. And there's the police, and there's the NPA, and there's the Department of Justice, and then there's you. And you sit at the top of that pyramid. And that's inescapable. It's an ineluctable conclusion that you cannot sit on top of the pyramid while a matter such as this is being investigated. Because it is being investigated. As we read this morning in the papers, the Hawks have executed search and seizure warrants in Polokwane on the office that you occupied. And they're clearly investigating, amongst other things, this transaction. And so there's an inescapable problem there. And there is a conflict of interest. And it doesn't matter how honorably you conduct yourself. It matters that perceptions are everything. And my perception And I'm sure the perception of the public at large is that you cannot continue to sit on the top of this pyramid while this matter is pending. So I'd like your view on that. It is a fact. And again, I want to stress this is not personal. It is a fact. It is a perception. It can't be thought away. It doesn't matter how honorably you conduct yourself. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Advocate Bredenbach. Honorable Dana.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to
Chair.
everyone. Excuse me. Chair.
Sorry, Honorable Dana. Honorable Mfalo. What is that?
No, thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I'm not sure with the modus operandi that you've espoused in running this inquiry. I don't think it will be fair to.
First of all, Mr. Mbalo, this is not an inquiry.
Okay, whatever it is. But I'm saying I don't think it will be fair to ask many questions. I think there must be a limit, Chair, that two speakers must ask or one speaker must ask, and then we allow the minister to respond.
No
because-
problem. What we'll do, we'll group you as the first round and the second round. So we're going to take those who raise their hands late as a second round. Is
Yeah,
that fine?
But if you can wait for me to finish, Chair.
Okay.
The
Finish.
point that I'm making, Chair, is that the honorable member that has asked questions, she has asked many questions. I think about 10 questions she has asked with many propositions. And maybe from her primary questions, there might be follow-up questions, maybe from another speaker. So I don't think that it is rational to allow many people to ask questions without dealing or responding to the first questions first. So, Chair, my advice to you is that let the minister respond to the questions asked to her first before you allow a second person to answer. To ask questions.
No,
Because it's
Mr.
not going to be effective.
You're going to drag us to a kind of a one-on-one kind of questioning. I think it was fine when you said at least to let the speakers not be many, so that we allow the minister to respond to the first batch of questions, then we take a second round. Everyone who wants to ask is going to be allowed that chance to ask. So what I will do now, I will take Honorable Dana, I will take Honorable Trolip and Honorable Swart, then allow the minister to respond. Then come back to Honorable Tsotetsi, Mutaung, Klopa, and Ngaba. The second round. So I think it will be fair if we do it like that, so that we avoid having a question to question. Of course, if there are follow-ups, they are going to be allowed after responses. Honorable Matafa.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I apologize for doing this to you and to the meeting. I don't want to question your judgment, but initially I was going to support the first proposal that you have made. But my intervention, Chair, it's mainly on the fact that we are sitting in many meetings. Myself, I'm debating in another mini plenary, and I was hoping that by the time that my slot comes up, I would have asked questions, and the approach that we would have taken would have assisted in that regard. So my request is it possible that you allow me or give me preference, unless if there are others that are going to debate, that I come in, and should I be called in another meeting, I can excuse myself. I apologize, Chair. That is my only plea.
Fine, then we'll take you after Mr. Swart. Honorable Dana, proceed.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to everyone. Good morning, Minister, and thank you for appearing here in front of us today. I must echo my colleague, Honorable Breitenbach, in saying that there's no animosity. This is a fact-finding mission as part of our very important oversight responsibility. Minister, I have 6 questions. My first question is, and thank you for your report, but I don't see that the loan agreement with Gondo Wealth Solutions has been provided. So I'd like to know, is this loan agreement available? Can we have a copy of this loan agreement? Has it been given to the president or anyone else? We'd like to see this loan agreement, Minister. And then you also mention in your report that that you spoke to Gondo Wealth Solutions and gained financial advice from them. They, for instance, advised you that you should not take from your pension fund to invest in the coffee shop. But I'd like to know, Minister, why would you take financial advice from an institution that is not a registered financial credit provider, and also then proceed to take a loan from them with an interest rate of nearly 50%? It does not sound to me like a good financial decision after you've gotten financial advice from this institution. So I'd just like to understand your thinking around that. And then, Minister, I'd like to know, was the entire purchase price, because I can't see it in any of the information that we received or any of the media reports, what was the entire purchase price of the coffee shop? Was it only 500,000 Rand? I struggle to believe that a coffee shop in Sandton would cost only 500,000 Rand. And if it was more than 500,000 Rand, how did you finance the balance of the purchase price of the coffee shop? You mentioned in your report that the appointment of Gondo was approved by a council resolution with the reference number there, MC 13304/2016. Did the council question the appointment of an investment advisor to the municipality regarding millions of rands working? And yet this investment solution company was appointed with no fee structure, apparently working for free. So did you find that suspicious? Did anyone question it? Did anyone say something about that? And you also mentioned in your report that you had nothing to do with the investment committee. It was under the purview of the municipal manager, and the municipal manager and the investment committee made the decisions according to the procedure to invest with VBS Bank. And yet you mentioned now with your opening address, that you gave the order to disinvest with VBS. So if you had nothing to do with the investment committee, was that within your powers to give the order to disinvest? And was it only based on the circular that was sent by Treasury regarding VBS, or was it based on any other decision? And then lastly, Minister, for this round, I'd just like to know, did you ever declare your dealings with VBS Mutual Bank in your official declarations of interest? To the president, maybe after you became minister, did you say anything? You said you sat with the minister, you told him about another pending case regarding your sister that was now in court. Did you declare or disclose the fact that you took a loan from VBS? Because as you know, as we've seen in the media as well, anyone, whether it be above board or not, and as my colleague said, nothing with regards to VBS is actually above board, because they were dishing out money that was in effect stolen from pensioners and people who actually needed it. So you must have known that anyone, any person that had dealings with VBS would be tainted. So I'd like to know if you ever at any stage declared that you did take a loan from VBS and what the dealings was with regards to that. Thank you, Chair. That's my questions for now.
Thank you, Honorable Trolip.
Thank you, Chair. You'll excuse me if I overlap a little bit, but I think it's bound to happen. First of all, just for clarity, when the minister does answer, will she be answering under oath? Just for the record. And I note that the minister was a councillor for many years. She was the deputy president and the president of SALGA. She was the mayor from 2014 to 2021. She understands the MFMA, the PFMA. She even told us that she studied further for an additional 2 years. So that all helps for context. To say there are no fees payable by the municipality might be technically correct, but we know that there was 24.2 million Rand in commission paid by VBS to Gundo Investments. And those commissions were lost to the bank. So there was a significant loss of public funding. And if you understand the MFMA and the PFMA, why did you not use the municipality's bank? You said Standard Bank was their bank. Why was the money not invested in Standard Bank? There's no denial that the 349 million rand was invested in VBS, so we assume that you accept that that was done. I would like to know if there is a loan agreement and that we could be finished with that loan agreement and what the repayment terms were in that loan agreement. Because as my colleagues have said, 45% plus interest on the capital loan is exorbitant, and I would not understand why a financial advisor would advise you to do that. My next question is, did you declare the loan when you were the mayor of Polokwane to the municipality? Because you were a public office bearer. Did you declare it when you were a minister in the previous administration, in your members' declaration? And did you declare ownership of the coffee shop and bistro in that declaration? Did you declare the loans and ownership of the coffee shop to the BDO investigation in 2018, 2019, because there appears to be no reference to that, and BDO questioned you around the investments? You also say that as the mayor, you instructed the municipality to withdraw the VBS investment 2 months before Treasury's instruction, yet you claim to have no investment responsibility as the mayor. Gundo Financial Solutions or Wealth Management is not a financial services provider. So therefore, why were you approaching them for a loan if they aren't an FSP? And then the source of income to make the 3 payments of 283,000 rand on 3 occasions. What was the source of income? If you weren't able to finance the purchase of the coffee shop, how were you able to finance that amount of money over a relatively short period of time? Just over a year. And then I want to ascertain relevance to the following. You said, I informed Gundo that I would withhold payments until the investment was concluded. On the 9th of October, the day I made the first payment, I received the report from Polokwane Treasury after I'd participated fully, and then I made the first payment. What is the relevance of that? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Trolep. You'll recall that as members of parliament, we take oath, all of us, and all members of the executive are made to take oath or affirmation. So that is the oath we operate with until the end of the term.
Thank you.
The executive is not required to take oath when appearing before the committee. Honorable Swart.
Thank you, Chair. I think the point you've just made is important because you indicated earlier this is not an inquiry. Should we be having a oversight inquiry like we've done in the past, such as the ESCOM inquiry, where witnesses were put under oath for the specific evidence that they were leading at that time? But obviously, the point you make is correct, that the minister is fully aware of what she indicates, could respond whether she's misleading Parliament. I think that's the point. She's fully aware that she's not under oath for this purpose, but she's exercising response to our oversight function. So I appreciate the clarity that you received in that regard. Chairperson, just from my side, I'd like to start with the NPA Act in particular. And given the questions that have been put to the minister and given her explanation, I would just like to read to her section 33 of the Act, National Prosecuting Act. The minister shall, for the purposes of section 179 of the Constitution, this Act or any other law, exercise final responsibility over the prosecuting authority in accordance with the provisions of this Act. Now, then it goes number 2, section 2, enabled to exercise your responsibility, the national director shall, that is obligatory, at the request of the minister, furnish the minister with information or a report regarding any case, matter, or subject dealt with by the national director in the exercise of their power. And it goes on in subsections, provide the minister with reasons for any decision, furnish the minister with information regard to prosecution, policy directives, etc. So I think, Honorable, through your chair, Honorable Minister, it's very clear that you have substantial powers in terms of that act. And I think that is the concern that the Honorable Breitenbach raised. We're not saying that there will be any intervention, but given the allegations and given the investigation into VBS and the large numbers of prosecutions, and given what you have indicated to ourselves, and given the fact that Hawks are today further investigating, there is, in my view, a glaring conflict of interest. We're not saying that you will abuse your powers, but we will say the possibility exists given what has happened in the past and given the powers that you have. And that having been said, would it not be wise at this stage to consider, I'm not saying standing down or anything, but just how does one deal with that possible conflict of interest? You've denied that there is, but I think one sets out a very strong legal case that there can be, and given what has happened in the past. And I think that is a huge concern, not only to us, but people that are watching this in the public, the media, given the closeness of the investigation of VBS, the prosecution, and now the many questions that arise from this loan. So allow me then, if you'd respond to that, I'd appreciate that. Allow me then just to deal with the loan, and many questions have been asked, and we would appreciate it if it is possible for you to provide us with a copy of the loan agreement. Again, my colleagues have indicated it doesn't seem to make commercial sense to have entered that loan agreement, and you indicated, and the question was put to you, why didn't you approach a normal commercial bank? And I would put it to you that the reason might be that you would probably not have got the repayment terms with a normal commercial bank. In as much as if we understand what you said, the repayment would only take place at the end of the enterprise, which was some 4 years later. If you entered the agreement in 2016, the payments were only made 4 years later. And I'm sure that no commercial entity would have entered to that. So then the question arises, why were you given such a preferential loan agreement? And I suppose the answer was the very high interest rate. But could you please comment, Honourable Minister, on the fact that 2016, the agreement was entered into, you had, and one hopes that if you supply us a copy of that agreement, it will say that the repayment only had to be made at some time in the future, which is suspicious. But on the 9th of October, the very day you received the report, that is a massive red flag. If I heard you correctly, the very day you received the report about the inquiry, that is the day you made the first payment. Was it not as a result of the report that you made that payment? The next payment is then very suddenly made on the 12th of November 2020, and then on the 7th of January 2021, in the total amount of 849. It could seem that it was as a result of the report and the fact that it was now a hard-hitting report impacting many, many people, that the repayments were suddenly made. And I'd ask you to comment on those, because it does seem beyond coincidental that the same day you receive the report is the day that you make the payment. And if that is not the case, then why were payments not made before that date? That's all the questions from my side. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Trolip, Honorable Matafa.
Thank you very much, Chair, and much appreciation for allowing me to have a bite at the presentation at this stage. Let me start by greeting the Minister, the DM, the DG from the department, members and guests. Chair, Let me join Honorable Breitenbach in appreciating the willingness by the minister to subject herself to scrutiny by the portfolio committee. For us, this demonstrates your commendable commitment to transparency, accountability, and the highest standard of leadership. We truly appreciate that. But Chair, I think that the intention of today, well, according to me, does not seek to reopen investigations already concluded, because we have it on record that reports have been provided even to the Prudential Authority, which is the South African Reserve Bank. Then I'll further implore the committee not to turn this session into an inquiry akin to a Section 194 inquiry. It is also established, Chair, that the Hawks are still seized with the investigation processes around the areas that require such to happen. So in my engagement, I'm going to limit myself to what I think is the primary question that we seek to address. And that, Chair, is also found in your introduction. Given where the minister is currently, maybe the question might be, is she fit to be in that office where she might be required to investigate or take decisions around those investigations that apply to people that can be deemed to have an inappropriate relationship with her? So my first question would be directly to the Minister, Chair, through you. Minister, can you assure this committee that should matters involving VBS land on your table, you will respond to them impartially, in a manner that does not compromise the investigation, in a manner that does not seek to suggest that you may be influenced to take decisions that a person who doesn't have any relationship with those that are being investigated wouldn't? The second question that I had, Chair, was initially asked by Honorable Dena, and Honorable Swart spoke to that. On the loan agreement, I think that wherever there's a loan agreement or a credit agreement, there will be paperwork. And I agree with them, maybe if such paperwork exists, it could be important that the committee is benefited with the document. However, Chair, I'm saying this with the full understanding that the National Credit Act also emphasizes the need to protect credit loan agreements with some level of confidentiality. So I would think that should that be the agreement of the committee, you will assist us in terms of if whether are we viewing the documentation in camera, or how then do we ensure that they are circulated, but equally they do not compromise that very important act by the National Credit Act. Chair, Honorable Swart also speaks about Section 33 of the NPA Act. Even though I know that I have asked the minister if whether will she be able to act impartially, I think Section 179 of the Constitution also stipulates that an act must be legislated to ensure that the prosecuting authority exercises its functions without fear, favor, or prejudice. And that is elucidated more in Section 32, where the impartiality and the oath that members in the prosecuting authority must take. And one of the sentences in that oath, it says, a member of the prosecuting authority shall serve impartially and exercise, carry out or perform his or her powers, duties and functions in good faith and without fear, favor, or prejudice, and subject only to the Constitution and the law. So having asked that question, I just wanted to say, maybe also let us not cast a aspersion around the NPA that it is easily influenced. It can be our view by the committee, because that also can reflect on what as parliamentarians we think. about the institutions that are supposed to be independent. Last question, Chair. Maybe it would be prudent for the minister to indicate, since assuming office, has a report around the investigation around the VBS matter been presented to her? Has she seen sight of such? And if you have, Minister, can you just indicate for us that you did deal with it in compliance with high ethical standards? Coupled to that is an intention from the minister to fast track those particular investigations and ensure that justice is served, as we have seen that some have been prosecuted and sentenced, so that the matter is brought to conclusion. Thank you very much, Chair. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much, honorable members. That concludes the first round of questions. We'll then allow the minister to respond. You can respond from that seat to all the questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and honorable members for the questions and engagement.
Take the mic close to you.
I'm used to standing when you are addressing at the House. It's not normal to sit. Thank you. Chair, it's quite a bit of questions and some were relatively the same. So I'll club them together without really going through one. I was picking them as honorable members were making questions. The involvement in making investments. Councillors do not participate in supply chain management. The process that was engaged by Polokwane municipality was ran by officials. No involvement of the mayor. They advertise, they get responsible for, the MM gets responsible for the appointment of committees that will be the bid evaluation, bid adjudication, appoint. After appointment, Section 52 of the MFMA says all contracts, not one, all contracts that the MM would have entered into at a particular quarter must all be reported to council. So the report was not a VBS report per se, for starters. So what you do, you report all of them. If there are 20 in that quarter, you will report 20 of them, you put them in the table. Contract one was related to water, awarded to contractor so-and-so at this value, starting time or date or whatever, etc. That's where the contract management plan of council comes from and gets to be updated all the time. So there is no involvement of the mayor or any councillor. So there's no councillor, even if it's a MMC or finance, who will sit in the process of the appointment of any service provider. Gundu was not a service provider of the municipality. If you look into the definition of national treasury and the FMMA, it states clearly that a service provider provides a service, gets remunerated or paid by council or government for that. Hence, the bid is called unsolicited. I'll make another example, which happens mostly in municipalities. It happens even in SARS now, where a company gets to be appointed to collect rates and taxes, the debt, on behalf of the municipality. That contractor does not get money every month on the basis that he has called 100 people. No. It's an unsolicited bid where you get a particular portion as agreed in terms of percentage, how much you have brought back. let's say you have collected 100 rand and the contract says you get 2%, you will get 2% of the collected 100 rand. Is the same as the broker fee. As you get business, it is on the basis of the percentage that you have agreed upon on the broker fee that you get paid. So not the exact typical definition of a service provider. And my view really still is they were not a strictly service provider as you define them, but they were providing a service, yes, to the municipality, not at the cost of council. So they are the ones, for example, in this instance, the committee and the finance office will look into the funds of the municipality and say, we have got a surplus fund of 2 million and we want to invest it. And then he will go out, get quotations on the basis of the interest rate, come present, and they make their own decision. We only get to be informed as council through section 52 at the end of the quarter on all what would have transpired in any, whether it's a water project or it's a road project, it gets to be included in section 52. My understanding, which still is my understanding, was that Gundu is a registered financial service provider. Yes, they might have not, as I get to know later, that they were not accredited with the national credit regulation. My understanding also, on another hand, I've requested quite a number of times, either from my brother or anybody, can you loan me money? It does not necessarily have to be on the basis of a registration. Maybe loan is not the right word in the example that I'm making, but I'm saying I can ask you, Honorable Trollip, and ask, can you borrow me money on Friday? And you say yes. And on Thursday, you kill your mom. You give me the money on Friday. The following week, I get to know the money you gave me comes from an act that would have been. I loaned from Gundu, not from VBS. I loaned from Gundu. My contract is with Gundu, not with VBS. So that's where the distinction is. And I regret the cause, the harm it has caused the people of a vendor in particular, because mostly the beneficiaries of the bank and the depositors were coming from vendor. I'm not saying it's an action where if I look back on hindsight, I don't think one should have done things differently. No, hindsight is bedside. One would have done things differently, but I had no knowledge of the mechanics of the bank inside. The reason why I made a withdrawal, or I requested for a withdrawal, almost all the investments that were made, even the ones of Standard Bank, were made under the acting municipal manager. A municipal manager was appointed on the 1st of May of the July month where the withdrawal was made. So he gets appointed on the 1st of May. He starts doing rounds. He comes to report to me on our monthly Monday meetings. He says, one worry I have picked up is the investment. Not the other liberty or whatever. Well, of course, they were also having a very nominal return, which was another issue that he raised on the other investments. I'm going to check if they are a commercial bank. He returns, I think 2 days or 3 days after that, he says, I've made the verification, they are not a commercial bank. He writes to withdraw the funds from VBS on maturity. Maybe it may also be prudent to explain to members that the amount was not necessarily that it was 349 taken in one day invested. It was a 6 months short-term investment, you take the interest and sometimes return it at the same amount or in other different amounts. So the committee never sat in one time and decided to invest in VBS alone. How did I get to know that it was during the investigation? Because I did not have, as a councillor, the innings of, but they will have 200, give 50 there, give 20 there, give, and then reconvene again and do that. So ultimately, it became 300 and something for VBS. Even when you calculate for Nedbank, Liberty and whatever, it was at the range of around 300. Not that that justifies the question. So when I'm saying, I mean the investment, when I'm saying I then said to the MM, withdraw it, it was because it's a joint decision which we took before a council sitting. Right? We will then inform council. Otherwise, why would I have an expert appointed by council 2 months before, started in May, withdrew the money in July? Then I don't take his advice. In fact, if you look into the BDO report, not that every remedial action that is done, you will like it. Shame he's cited there. Because BDO said you shouldn't even have waited for that 2 months. You should have withdrew it with immediate effect. You nearly lost. But in my view, you withdraw before time, you would have lost the interest of council. But he's part of the people who transgressed the officials. So the CFO, the deputy CFO, he was 2 months on the job, as I say, when he initiated the investment. So it's not that Gundu reported to me and then I said, withdraw. No. It was on the advice of a municipal manager who had just started 2 months. The interest, funny, even when we were looking at the transaction ultimately at the end. Honorable Trotty, if someone gives you money and you do not pay for about 3 years, as I said in my engagement, that Sylvanas only registered 3 years after that, being carried by a company under T5, which is also called Golden Threads, which was doing consultancy work, mostly in social facilitation, and a T5, which also had an interest in investment group, which was also doing work mostly in the construction and which my brother was running. So I think that is the essence. Honorable Glenis Breitenbach, T5. My mom comes from a family of 5. And I don't know, by coincidence, all of them had girls whose names start with T's. There are 2 Thembis, myself and my elder sister Thembi. There's Tabiso, there's Tabane, and then there's Tutu. So we actually call ourselves something that I wouldn't mention in an official house, as a group of girls coming from that. And it's a relationship I value because I never had an older sister. All of them are older than I am. When you talk to them, they will tell you how foolish I have been growing up. So that's where the name comes from. And I'm glad you noticed that it's not a normal, yeah. So it comes from a collection of sisters who have traversed life together. I attempted a loan, as I indicated, that upon resignation from public service, I withdrew my pensions. I placed them with FNB. They placed them under Alan Gray, whatever they are called, but the Alan Gray Fund. The costs were as exorbitant as this cost. It was at that level. I actually even went some of my little minor savings that one does on a monthly basis, hope you die soon or whatever. I even went to Old Mutual where I had some. I inquired. It was not affordable for me at the time, and I wanted the venture. The payment in 4 years, I think I had explained it, that, and that's what makes the interest rate to be equal. But funny, even if you can go today, take that money, which I've done also, again, to check and correct and see if whether was there anything really that one I didn't look into. It came at about 2 points down from a calculation of a financial investment, which is a bank. The money that I took, the time I took, I kept with, and the period that I paid it back. Now, when I registered Sylvanus, I was almost getting ready to start with the payments, the repayments. It takes me into what Honorable Danas asked about the overall amount, and I'll cover it now. The repayment, oh, let me start it this way. When I was getting ready, then there were calls from National Treasury. In fact, their email, to be specific, was instructive withdraw, which came later after we'd already withdrawn or made a notice to withdraw. It was in August, the money came in September. That's the time of the registration of Sylvanus, getting ready. Now it's an entity. It took about 3.5 years to build the entity to be able to stand on its own and have its own bank account. Otherwise, it has been trading under T5. Actually being subsidized to a large extent by what my brother was doing and the work that I was doing at Golden Threads at the time. Declarations. Declarations were made at the municipality. The declarations are not structured the way honorable members are asking, unfortunately. In fact, when I did my first declaration here in Parliament, I saw a huge distinction between a declaration that is made in council and a declaration that is made in Parliament. The declaration at the municipality, in fact, by the way, they should be appearing on the annual reports. So which means honorable members can go into the website. Obviously, you will not get the package of the declaration. You will get a summary, and it depends on how they summarize it. And sometimes AG finds a question, they are never really updated. But every councillor is supposed to declare, and it will write what have you declared. Some instances value, some instances they wouldn't calculate and all that. But coming into the National Assembly, I did declare the business. At the time, the loan was long repaid. So, Honorable Trollip, to be exact, in council, the businesses were declared, not the loan. There is no declaration that asks for a loan. AG did try, I think, in 3 or 4 years ago to jointly with National Treasury to issue a sample of what municipalities must do in declarations. Honorable Trollip, I would like to make a correction, which I think is not only from what is written that I'm an old councillor. No, I've only been 8 years in council. He was my DM, by the way, he knows it. When I walked into Polokwane municipality, my first relationship with the municipality was me paying a bill and nothing else. I had no knowledge of local government. The least that I've tried to do was out of the own effort of reading the ordinances and the acts ultimately into shaping what my peers recognized then. So when I was president of Salga, or rather deputy president of Salga, or the chairperson in the province, I must have been a councillor for 2 years or so. To be exact, I did not start even the term of mayorship in 2011. I became a mayor at the resignation of a mayor who resigned in April or so of 2014, and I became a mayor in 2014 for 2 years. And that is the explanation that I'm giving, that you are resigning on the other side, but it does not give you necessarily a full guarantee that you will have another term to do any work as a public office bearer. Rather look for other alternatives. So there's nothing wrong with the timing in terms of the payment. I do believe, and I still do, it would have been very wrong for me then and now, when you are notified that there's an investigation taking place, you are supposed to appear, and then you quickly start making payments. I just thought it will, because I had a period of about 3 years as in agreement, not servicing that until the company was fully registered in 2019, and the bank unfortunately collapsed in the beginning of 2020. So the entire purchase price, Honorable Dele, from the part of recovered that one had to advance from the other side was 232, which means it was 8 something. You will put the 565 and the 232, which was the amount that the 565 didn't cover. So even Gundo did not have the entire amount that I was initially requesting. And recovered, hence I explained that the first payment in terms of servicing the coffee shop, I had to start with recovered, which was also having a shortage of about 200. I think I've covered, and I'll go to the area of the conflicts. The question also which spoke about the Standard Bank repayment. I'm not sure if the honorable member Trolip understood me very well, or maybe I misunderstood the question, which is also possible. The municipal bank was Standard Bank. I've never banked in Standard Bank. I've never made payments to Standard Bank. The point I was raising about the investigation was that if you have looked into that chapter 13, there was a portion which was saying recoveries, recover money lost, blah, 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 or civil recovery. That's why I said we then went back with National Treasury and Provincial Treasury to Standard Bank, which is the municipal banker. Them looking exactly as to whether did the money that has been paid back reach the municipal bank account, and it did. And the only transgressions that remain were for the officials and the executive mayor. In that I contravened section 52 of the MFMA, and I was sanctioned with the University of Pretoria as I have. Now I want to go to the issue of conflict of interest and the direct relationship that the Act, or rather the NPA Act, gives to the minister. I also want to look into the fact that because it has happened in history, it guarantees that it will happen futuristically, as if history has not been a teacher in what needs to happen, even in terms of government, or rather of parliament playing its role with regard to oversight, which is what currently the committee is doing. And I think honorable members will agree that things have changed, for starters. Secondly, if there was still that naivety and arrogance, possibly this sitting might have been overlooked. by an old minister who would have thought I'm not accountable or responsive to the committee that is calling outside an inquiry but wants fairly and understanding, which is what led to the availing of the contracts and the proof of payments live to the report that has been made to the president, because the advice I got from a council was that I can display or make known and open such documents to the president, who you all know has requested the report and it has been finished. And those documents are there. But I'm not taking your time and your concern for granted. That I will come here, give you dates, name banks when the payment has not been made. I will never do that. I will never do that. The instruction to withdraw or the instruction to prosecute, even the act says at the request. So the request of the minister. So the NPA will just not write. There will have to be a request. Now the test is sitting with honorable members here, availing myself to account, and still write a letter to NPA demanding this and that. I don't think that will be honorable. The act is very clear. It doesn't say mandatory reporting. It says at the request. I have not made that request. I don't intend to make, even on my sister's case. You can actually even ask them, my first meet and greet with them. I gave them that commitment that there is this case that you all know I'm sitting in. I will never, openly, not in a meeting of one, TM was there, all the executive of the NPA were there. I gave them that guarantee on day one, because that was the thought that I had in my mind, that they are not comfortable and they may be thinking, this is the time. I said, I commit myself in front of all of you. That area you will work as you always do. You will report as you always do. In this instance, and my word verbatim was, I'm part of you. Even on the TRC matter, we must jointly work together to find a solution. So VBS will not be different as a matter. I will not want to really engage more on the minister availing such. Suffice to say, Chair, I can engage with my council and see the possibility of bringing the documents to the committee, in committee possibly, and honorable members, if they feel strong that the mentioning of the payment, the mentioning of the contract is not sufficient, then I can respond to all those questions. I think I have touched on all, well, Honorable Matafa had asked the last question whether I have seen sight of a VBS report from the NPA. No, I've seen sight of no report. Actually, not even about any other thing. Suffice to say that we met on a meet and greet. I actually have not even had an opportunity to work thoroughly on the issues in the department overall. I'm 2 months or so at work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for that elaborate responses. I wish to inform you as well that, as well as the committee, I've spoken with the committee secretary now. We are also going to seek counsel from the Parliamentary Legal Services in relation to the sharing of the loan agreements and the financial statements, so that we are where we are, as well as Parliament, able to not flout anything. We're going to do like this now. We're going to take Honorable Ngaba, Honorable Klopper, Honorable Nomvalo, Honorable Kwebane, Honorable Zotitsi, Honorable Motaung, no, you agree you allowed Honorable Nomvalo to collapse my noting. I'm restarting it now. I'm restarting the noting now. Chief, you can't be defying the chair. So in that order, honorable members,
Thank you, Chair. I have two questions. So the one is, I see in the report provided today, there's mention about engaging with Gundo. Who at Gundo were you engaging with? Were you engaging with Razwinane directly? Can you say more about the nature of your relationship with him? Do you have a personal relationship outside of Gundo? And then the next thing is, again, I'm particularly interested in the conflict aspect. So it's already been mentioned that you have final responsibility over the NPA. I've just also been looking at the act. I see that you appoint directors, deputy directors. There's something there about your contribution to remuneration scales. I don't think it's far-fetched to at least suspect or fear that prosecutors will feel it's bad for your health to act against the minister's interests. Even if we accept your undertaking that you won't ask for VBS related reports, et cetera, these people work under you. And like I say, there are several provisions of how you can limit your career if you get on the wrong side of the minister. To that end, I also want to note, Honorable Matafa was saying, can you promise us that if VBS things come across your desk, you'll deal with them impartially? The problem is, even if we took your promise to do so seriously, there is good reason for the general public to perceive the possibility of nefarious things happening. So can you just say more about, you are under no obligation to step aside, and without taking any position on the legalities, et cetera, of what has happened here. Can you understand why the existing storm causes such great consternation? I heard you answer in the NCOP the other day, you serve at the pleasure of the president, but no one can make you serve as minister. It is your prerogative to step aside, or even if it's the president's choice, you could request a deployment to a different ministry. Would you consider that? Are you certain that your continued service on this particular ministry is in the best interests of the country, of the renewal agenda that we're all trying to achieve in bringing this country back? Can you just speak to that?
I see from your comments, Honorable Ngaba, that you are following a lot of progressive things in the country, including renewal. Honorable Glover.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the warm welcome in the beginning of the session. Minister, I've listened to your explanations in the previous round, and I just need to confirm. On pages 2, 4, and 8 of your report, you mentioned that you had no part basically in the decisions to invest the money as it was invested. However, the approval happened by council, and as a mayor, you are head of that council. The ultimate approval was made by council. What legal advice did they get to give the go-ahead on this? Was the council misled then to approve the investment into a mutual bank? You made an example also of taking a loan from family, and I think we must really discern there's a big difference between taking a loan from family members and taking a loan from a commercial or commercial loan. In this case, from this business, who is not accredited by the NCR. They can be likened to a loan shark agreement. Here we're speaking of a 47% interest over this period. And at face value, you're saying it was the same. I mean, I haven't done the homework on knowing what the other banks would have approved. But just on a quick look at a credit card loan is around 19%, I think at FNB per annum on a credit card, not even a personal loan. So it seems exorbitant. I just want to find out, is the report that you furnished this House identical to the report you finished the President? And if it isn't, what are the discrepancy and what is the difference between the two reports? Minister, and through you, Chair, you spoke about your sister's case. I think you mentioned your sister. I couldn't hear correctly. And you found that that was pertinent to disclose to the President. A scandal breaks out, one of the biggest scandals of our time, robbing old people, the poor of the poor. And I understand you found it was not necessary, or it didn't come to mind to create the link and report this or disclose this at the time of the breaking. And as this case followed, obviously the information came out, and that is when you decided to come forth with it or explain the situation once it was out. I find it hard to believe that such a big scandal doesn't allow a person to consider that it's extremely important to disclose. It's not a £5 under the couch. It's millions. Minister, whistleblowers in the police and all we know face massive backlash. Massive backlash. They are petrified to come into front with information from losing jobs and so forth. As my colleague also mentioned, wouldn't this feel exactly for the same people serving under you who have to blow the whistle on information they find out on the minister? And I can't see that conflict can go unnoticed. And I think I would just like also more clarity on that, Minister, if possible. And lastly, the coffee shop, is it still open or is it closed? If it's closed, has it been sold, liquidated? What happened to this coffee shop in the meantime, in the interim? Thank you, Minister. That will be all.
Thank you, Honorable Klopper. Honorable Nomvalo.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, I think the concerns about a possible or potential conflict of interest arise from the fact that the investigation, in particular against Mr. Raziwane, is still underway. And the allegation is that Mr. Raziwane was at the center of these transactions that were taking place, and currently is facing charges of fraud, money laundering, and corruption. Now, you are the head of the department. You have a statutory responsibility to oversee and to supervise the work that is done by all the entities falling under your department. And the NPA is no exception to that. Unless you are saying in this case, you are ready to abdicate some of your statutory obligations, especially on issues that complicate you. Because whether you like it or not, the VBS matter should be supervised by the minister on a regular basis, because it is of public interest, because it involves public funds. Now, I think it is triggered by that reality. And I would like you to take us through by reinstating the public confidence in your institution, but that, because from where I'm sitting, I'm not convinced that we have given an adequate response on how we would you would avoid this conflict of interest. And then the second question also relates to Mr. Raziwana, whom I think was the director of Gundo Wealth Solutions. It has been asked, but partially by the former speaker, that what is your relationship? Do you have any relationship with Mr. Razwane? How many times have you met? And you have also indicated in your report that you were advised by Gundo Wealth Solutions, that they offer a loan to you. Did they advise you in writing or verbally? And if they advised you in writing, I know that the chair said we are still going to consult Parliament on whether we have a right to, ask for some documents or not. But is there any, if you advise in writing, will you be comfortable to give this committee an email or any kind of proof that shows that they advised you that they can offer a loan? And then in our language, if a person offers a credit while is not registered, we call that person umashonisa. Would I be correct, Minister, if I say you borrowed, if we were to take your version, will I be correct if I say you borrowed from umashonisa? Now that you yourself, you have accepted that you learned at a later stage that this person was not a registered credit provider. And what is it that, because running a coffee shop was not an agent, it was just a commercial interest. You had a business interest. It's not an agent thing that can require you to go to an extent of borrowing money from a person who's not registered. So what is it that really triggered this interest of borrowing money to a point where you borrow from a person who is not registered? And then the third question relates to the borrowing of the money now. At what stage was this money borrowed? Was it borrowed immediately after the investment of the funds of the municipality were made to VBS? I'm asking this because I want to get the correct sequence of events. Was it borrowed immediately after the VBS money, the municipality funds were invested and before the withdrawal, or the money was borrowed after the withdrawal of the investments? I'm asking that question because internally I want to make a certain conclusion, which I cannot share here, but I can't make that conclusion without getting the correct sequence of events. I think I've exhausted my questions, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nomvalo. Honorable Mkhwebane.
Thank you, Chairperson. Though I was almost the last one, you took the opportunity for the other honorable members. Thank you, Minister.
Here
you
you
so much.
allowed Mr. Nomvalo to call out my noting.
No, I don't think you were supposed to disrupt it, but it's fine. Minister, thank you for availing yourself today. I would also say it's a movie which is always repeating itself, and we're watching it over and over in this country. And unfortunately, it involves almost same actors in this particular movie, because you would understand that indeed it's a very serious issue which we need to check into. And this also shows the reality of our background as Black people, in the sense that we might ask all the questions about the loan agreement, why approach the person. And you've explained yourself that, you've also tried other commercial banks, but then unfortunately you ended up going to so-called Mashonisa. But again, if you are blacklisted, if you don't have any source of income, that's the reality of us as Black people, because we don't have that privilege of accessing the resources. So, but my issue is on the question relating to the current position which you are holding, and as well, it's a concern because you'll find that there's also same actors in this kind of movie, where you would see that there is a firm of attorneys like your Vexman who will also be continuously working with possibly the department on prosecution of some matters and all those, and you being the executive authority who is responsible for the NPA. And on the other hand, you'd wonder why now, what has transpired, what triggered this. But coming to the issue of section 96 of the Constitution, if you can just maybe elaborate on that from your perspective. It's section 96 or 196, which talks about the issue of conflict of interest. I'm interested in that, especially how my colleagues or other honorable members have raised the issue of that perception, which is out there, that you are the executive authority for the NPA, the issue of the conflict of interest. Yes, NPA is impartial and they need to do their work without fear or favor. But at the end of the day, it's not similar like the Chapter 9 institutions. You are still the executive authority for the NPA. So the NPA might in a way be compromised by whoever is the executive authority. I think if I'm correct, it's section 96, not 196, yes, 96, from where the Executive Ethics Act comes from. Because that act is very clear. It says where there is a possible conflict. It doesn't say there should be a conflict. It says you should avoid exposing yourself to that particular conflict of interest. In your view, how do you think you'll deal with this matter going forward? Because yes, NPA is doing their work, and we cannot just say, oh, I don't agree with you when you say to them, continue doing your work, because we want you to hold them to account. I mean, NPA's performance is terrible, I must say to you. There's a lot of cases, very high profile cases, which they are delaying to finalize. Very serious cases of Abo Steenhof, Pala matters, and everything, which we would want you as members of parliament to make sure that they fast track those. VBS also being one of the critical ones. And it's so interesting that in this movie, the EFF was always blamed for VBS, but now we are sitting here, we are dealing with this matter, and we are nowhere to be found in this particular space. But then we also want those who stole the poor people's money to be brought to book, because whatever they did was very much problematic. Unfortunately, then they are on their own. We can blame those criminals who are now in front of the court, but then again, we should be blaming the current system, because it allows that MFMA doesn't allow you to invest. A mutual bank, you can't invest in a mutual bank, and you cannot, well, that's also one of the gaps of the system, because if we are continuing to allow that, and we are continuing to allow the monopoly of these banks to behave as they wish, But again, you approached the bank, you invested some of the monies there, which was good. Your MM said, let's withdraw the money, let's focus on making sure that there's service delivery, which I think was a good decision. But I think this issue of a conflict, I'll just want to hear from you. How do you view this and how do you go around it? I think the honorable member Nomvalo indicated. Are you then saying, as far as NPA is concerned, you would actually you can't even delegate your responsibilities to the DM? Possibly is the president who must decide. I don't know how that legally we can pass by it, that you don't now oversee the NPA as far as this matter is concerned. But that's why I was saying to you, I don't agree with you when you say you haven't asked anything. We expect you to ask everything because, I mean, there's nothing which is moving as far as the matters which are of public interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mkhwebane. Honorable Tsotetse.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to the Minister, the Deputy Minister, and honorable members present here. And all those that have attended this session of today. I think a lot has been asked, but Chair, I'm moving from a premise which suggests that today's session is not necessarily an inquiry. I'm moving from that premise. Actually, I take interest, Minister, in insisting that you may need to assist to demystify the perceptions that are there. And I'm going to articulate these perceptions as raw as they are, with the hope that in your response, you will then give us a sense of where is the executive authority that you hold is as it relates to these matters. On a lighter note, Chair, I hear Honorable Mkhwebane says that it's surprising that we are sitting here with the person who's not in the EFF. The affidavit is very big, and we don't know who's going to be here next. Now, there's a perception, Minister, that the loan which you got was a kickback from the transactions which would have undertaken, which would have been undertaken by the municipality with the VBS. It's as raw as that. It exists, fueled, of course, by various analysts, which I would have heard. I would really like to hear you directly responding to such, that it's questionable that you may only have started only paying this loan by the time when VBS itself was in hot waters. That is another perception which exists. That given the fact that you are the minister within the security cluster, what is the possibility that you might be able to use your influence not only to frustrate the operations of the NPA, but as well as using the very same cluster to obstruct the law from being from taking its course, meaning the issues of the hawks attending to the issues of to any issue which relates to the matter at hand. And this is also one thing that exists, which I think that you may want to give us a sense of what's your view around it, and how do you reassure the country that that such will not then take place. And it's a perception, Minister, that the coffee shop itself was actually the business to facilitate such kind of transactions. That it never really had an intention to operate as a genuine business. And I suspect hence there's a question of whether does it still exist or not, because that is what is frequenting in the media. Well, there is also a view, I am not sure where those who are raising these things are getting it, but you don't also clarify it. I think we've heard it somewhere in your your presentation. But there's a view that this loan contract does not actually exist. That it does not exist. It's what you may have, not have. Now, the last one, Minister, which I think has been coming out quite strongly, is the question of using your position to prevent the NPA from executing its responsibilities. I ask these questions, Minister, direct as they are, hoping and knowing that you understand quite well that doing any of these things would amount to you undermining your oath of office. And I ask them deliberately so that you give us an assurance that you are not going to place yourself in a position to undermine your oath of office. So, Chair, other issues, of course, I think they've been exhausted to the latter. Questions of why do we allow institutions to make deposits into VBS, which was a mutual bank? I think over time, those questions have been exhausted to the latter. And then, of course, given the standings of the meeting of today, I don't think it's an inquiry. So I don't think that is really worth of any material effect to ask them. There's quite a number of documents to the effect of clarifying all these issues that speaks to the VBS itself, the illegal transactions that have been undertaken through that institution and so forth. So may you please, Minister, respond to these issues. As I said, these are the issues that are asked by the South African public, who, unlike me, don't have a privilege of sitting in front of you and saying that this is the concern which we have. And in that regard, I'd really like you to give them a very direct response so that we reassure ourselves that institutions of government are still safe under your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mutau.
Thanks, Chair, for the opportunity. Maybe I must also mention that your rearrangements of questions dealt with me. I will just welcome the report that we have received from the Minister, because as the Portfolio Committee, we have a responsibility to make sure that in this allegation that is happening, we must make sure that there is no conflict of interest that can arise. Most of my questions, Chair, they have already been asked by other members. We are waiting for a response from the Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mtaung. Honorable Minister, that is the second round of questions. Can you answer them as elaborative as you were with the first one so that you're not accused of choosing the first than the second? Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. I'll do that. I will do my best to issues that have been raised. I think I would want to start on this set with dealing with the issue of investigations and the prosecutorial decision. The Minister of Police is responsible for the investigations through DPCI. Yes, we sit in the cluster, but the choice and the decision on who to investigate when and how lies squarely with the police. Actually, to a less extent, even with the Minister of Police. He could do that possibly on an intervention when there is a request on an outcry somewhere. But the responsibility of policing investigation lies squarely with the administration of the police from the commissioner downwards, including DPCI priority crimes. And secondly, the matters relating to VBS or any other are actually, in terms of prosecution, a decision of the DPP. And it starts sometimes as low or even below the DPP, going up to the DPP at the provincial level where the matter would have been. And the NDPP comes in relatively on a decision that would have been made by the province, either on an intervention or on conclusion of those matters. The minister does not decide who should be prosecuted or not prosecuted. I do get the feel, Honorable Gaba, that there are career limiting issues or matters, but can you imagine the entire organogram actually of the NPA is almost concluded. It's the very few positions that have to do with the ID that has just been advertised or rather promulgated now. There are DDGs which are sitting there, have been appointed, have their remuneration. I just can't imagine a minister will now say, and this is governed by the law. There's a Labor Relations Act, for example, on how people are supposed to be remunerated, their promotion, their and their reporting is with the NDPP. So it means I will say to the NDPP, no, he must not get a promotion or he must not get an increase. It's very much unlikely. Unlikely. They sit there in their own building. They do their work on a day-to-day basis. They check, of course, with the areas where the quarter reports are supposed to be dealt with. They've submitted one actual. It does not even list or name the cases. It gives you the overall figure of what they are dealing with. So I can't even tell to a large extent as to in this 50 is the Honorable Chair part of the 50. Hence I said the act is also clear. It says at the request of the minister. Do I have an intention to request that? No. I do believe it will only be in areas where they need assistance that they will raise the issue that as the NDPP always does on other issues that needs a discussion with us. So they are responsible for prosecution. Mr. Ralium is already in court So if I have this influence, then it means I'll go to the judge that is presiding on the matter and say, out of the 11 or 13, no, keep the others, take this one out. It's also not possible. It's not possible. So if you were saying possibly the NDPP will say, I want to investigate him. Can you permit me? Okay, I would say there is that possibility. But he's already in court, I think 2 years or so before today. So there could be a perception of career limiting, but what is the duty of us and a responsibility in a perception? Then anything that is a perception stands, anything that is a perception can be corrected. I also think it's not a correct notion. Because you can have a perception, but the perception must be backed up by facts. Clarification must be given. And if clarification is sound, then there could be. I actually, as I indicated earlier, when it comes to a promise of impartiality, Honorable Gab, I said I offered it because I was aware of a case that they may have a feel that there will be no impartial. I offered impartiality to the NPA. Even before the arising of this case, on a matter that I'm saying I raised it because I am sitting in court. I've actually even said to the prosecutor, you know what? I think I will actually not come. That 84-year-old must get out of her house and come and deal with the case of her daughter. I can't even explain more what I said openly into that meeting, but it was a giving of impartiality that I'm guaranteeing the NPA in my first meeting with them. Honorable Nomvalo asked me, I'm not sure whether it's him, but there's a question that says, how many times have I met the NDPP? Maybe 4 times. And the 4 times, it was only once in a meeting. So if a meeting in a gala dinner of the office of the Chief Justice, you call it a meeting because we greeted, then I will call it a meeting. If a meeting on the Judiciary Day where we were invited into the Judiciary Day and we sit with the office of the Chief Justice on the Judiciary Day, then I will call it as a 3rd meeting. If the final judgment by Chief Justice Zondo attending that is a meeting, then I will call that a meeting. But I have met the NDPP once. Yes, I will have still to engage and meet, but currently we only had a meet and greet. I may be missing maybe an event or 2 where we would have met, but I've met the NDPP once. The report, I wouldn't want to get deep into the discussion on the report with the president, but the matter is the same, is the loan. It's a repayment. So it's not that I'm meeting the president on another matter. Yes, I will attach the documents. And Honorable Chair has assisted in terms of a process that you also think could assist the committee to have access to those documents if possible. I have nothing to hide. That's why I am here. But the sitting itself has its own positioning. It is not an inquiry, which I respect. It's a sitting of the committee getting an explanation from the minister. And that is why I am here in my capacity as the minister today. So I don't think really there will be an issue of not getting a fair reporting. I'll actually report the same way in another body that has nothing to do with parliamentary or whatever. The story is the same. There's a body called Integrity Commission. I am referring to that. It doesn't belong here, but I'm just saying it is the same report that I will be offering to the officials. The Honorable Klopper, the coffee shop exists. It's no longer owned by Sylvanas. It actually has been a space even before COVID where I bought the coffee shop, a coffee shop. And colleagues can, if they are in a Gauteng visit, I don't know the new owner, but the coffee shop at the time I was operating, it coincided with COVID and it got shut. And when the contract for the renewal of the lease, I closed the coffee shop. I took the amenities, everything inside, which were the equipment that I had purchased. I utilized them in the events that my sister has been operating to assist her to run her business further. So yes, there was a coffee shop, Sylvanas. There is still a coffee shop on those premises today, but not owned by me or T5. The ultimate approval, Honorable Klopper, by council. Maybe it's something that the laws may have to be, the regulations rather, not the law, be looked into. Section 52 is a post facto reporting. So what happens is officials work for the quota, appoint, do everything because there is a separation of powers between administration and public official. So at every end of the quarter, Section 52 of the MFMA says the municipal manager must bring a report to council with regard to financial transactions of the municipality. In fact, that report by law, you are mandated to publicize it so that if as a member of the public, you want to know the City of Cape Town procurement or whatever, you go to that report every quarter. You can see which road is going to be touched, is going to be touched by who, for how much. That's a Section 52 report. So you can say council approves. Yes, council can call for an investigation. Supposedly they received the report and they look like, no, we don't think this is right or whatever. Then council can say, can we have a report on this specific matter? But ordinarily a Section 52 report is a list of the quarter that council gets to be notified. It's not even for approval, if I recall well, it's for notice that therefore note, so that what councillors, cluster heads can then follow up on those projects, and it creates the overall monitoring and evaluation implement of council to track the progress of the projects that have already been allocated. So I do not think that one can say council took a decision on any procurement matter prior a procurement happens. They always get to be notified once. Hence, there will be a request at any given time for an investigation to deal with the issues. Well, I wouldn't want to categorize Honorable Nombalo, a person who's registered with the FSB, but not registered with the NCR as a machonist. But all what I'm saying is I needed to grab an opportunity of a coffee shop that was becoming available. One honorable member said, what necessitated that? Yes, you could have waited, then you miss on the opportunity of the coffee shop, which is what I desirably wanted to have. And that's what informed me on the decision on whether to take the opportunity given or not. Honorable Mkhwebane, I'm not certain of the section. I have the luck of DM having the.
Yeah, section 96,
No,
subsection
section
2A.
Honorable Mkhwebane, Honorable Minister, I am still the chairperson of the meeting.
Lord Chair, it's just that I was, because
It's
I
fine.
had to go back as well and check.
It's
They
fine.
were still checking. Apology for that, yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
You can proceed, Minister.
I'm raising that because section 96, we may still go back as you say correctly. So it talks about the conduct of cabinet members and deputy ministers. Members, I'm reading 196.1. Members of the cabinet and deputy ministers must act in accordance with the code of ethics prescribed by national legislation. So it's not related to the NPA. I also tried to check 196, that maybe you could be remembering it off the cuff, of course, and not necessarily where it is, but I can read the whole of it. It's very short. And
Sorry, Minister. Honorable Mkhwebane, is it a point of order?
Just to correct, to just make it easy for her to comment on the section, I was referring to a conflict of interest. As currently you are the cabinet member, section 96, subsection 2A, that an executive member, like with the current operations of overseeing the work of the NPA, you should avoid exposing yourself to a conflict of interest. That's the part I was referring to. After they have said, how are you going to work, and the perception and the public and the kind of work, because that is what you've taken an oath on, the Constitution and the conflict. That was what I was saying you can comment on.
Thank you, Honorable Mkhwebane. Honorable Minister. Proceed.
no, thank you very much, Honorable Mkhwebane, for that clarification. I get it now, and it does make sense. The section is actually 2B. I've explained already, or I should rather say I tried to explain that one, for example, it deals with the conduct with relation, one, to the interest and the business, which in responding to the other question, I did indicate that the coffee shop is in existence, but no longer under my ownership. And it advises, or it says, one must not act in a way that is inconsistent with their office. And I've explained in terms of the rights and responsibilities of the police in terms of investigations, the NPA in terms of prosecutions, and the report mechanisms that are there, and the law instructs that we should be able to respect and protect. Honorable Mkhwebane, I lastly gave an assurance to the committee, committed myself into an undertaking of making sure that that conflict doesn't arise. Honorable Ndaba then raised an issue of a discussion between myself, which relates to that conflict, which I'm now responding to, which is a discussion pertaining, which will be pertaining to me and the president, and suggestions of what she thinks could be desirable on how the matter could be looked into. And as I had said earlier on, I wouldn't want to preempt the discussion of the president. Yes, I have submitted the report, but I will await the discussion with the president on what are the possible ways of looking into the matter. Honorable Mkhwebane also comes with areas in which the president may also want to look into. All what I'm saying is I'm serving at the behest of the president to serve the nation and the people of South Africa, and we'll arrive at that decision or discussion at that decision as we have that discussion. The last part of the questions from Honorable Tshotetse is the loan you got a kickback. I think I've explained and clarified that even at the payment, the loan has always been categorized as a loan, not a kick. The 2016 payments themselves, a loan. I have explained, secondly, the reasoning and the rationale of the payment process and the payment period. I have committed myself to finding a way of showing that the repayments and the transactions are available so that members in one way or the other, we can be able to arrive at a position where you have access to that. But all I'm saying also is I can't come here from 9:30 or whatever time we start, keep the honorable members until 12 and tell them something that does not exist. I say I have paid on this day and you say proof of payment. I say no, hey, no, I can't do that. I cannot do that. So I am here because of a request that the chair made and I fully accepted on behalf of the committee. And I said, let us do that. When I was here in Parliament last week before chair, you could come back home. Some few members I met, Honorable Breitenbach, and some raised the issue. I said, yes, I've spoken to chair. It's delaying a bit because he's going through a bereavement. I never said I'm not available. I never said I'll never come to you. I said, I wish it has happened already. And I think that was last week, Wednesday or so. I wish it would have happened already. It's a pity that chairperson is still home because of a bereavement. And here it has happened today, albeit a bit later than I had hoped it will, but of course, due to genuine reasons. And I'm here availing myself to members, even onward, if there is still a need for anything to be clarified, that I become available. I think, Chair, I've tried to exhaust the questions.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think indeed the responses were elaborate and precise. Of course, that will not prevent honorable members from taking follow-ups. But I would wish to plead with the honorable members that can follow-ups be follow-ups. Can we please make it a bit shorter, because we still have the lower courts remuneration committee. We still have the Judicial Officers Association of South Africa that we need to take. So can the follow-up be brief and straight to the actual follow-up? So it's going to be Honorable Ngaba, Honorable Breitenbach, Honorable Dena, and Honorable Nomvalo. Honorable Mkhwebane, Honorable Tshotetse.
Chair, may I just get an indication of how long we're going to still sit? We appreciate we are.
It's up to us.
Okay, thank you. I'm just wondering with the.
The longer you drag it, Honorable Swart,
Yes,
the
thank
longer
you.
we sit here. Honorable Ngaba, please quick, my sister.
Yeah, Chair. I just didn't hear a response to my question about the relationship with Razwinane. Thanks.
That was as quick as we expected. Honorable Breitenbach.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Minister, if you could just please tell me who, if you know these people and what your relationship with them is. So the Mzuzu Group, Mzuzu, M-Z-U-Z-U, Mzuzu Group. Do you know Lungile Madlala? Do you know Sipiwe Nkambule? Can you tell me who the directors of T5 are? The directors. Who were the directors of Sylvana's, the coffee shop? And Rico Vert, what is your relationship with Rico Vert? Do you know who Rico Vert is? Of course, it's a company, but who are the directors? Companies have people behind them. Do you know who makes up Rico Vert? And if you know who they are, please tell me who they are and whether you have some sort of relationship with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Breitenbach. Honorable Tanner.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, one of the colleagues stated that the Minister of Justice is at the top of the pyramid. I think it was Honorable Breitenbach of justice in our country. And I'd like to know from the Minister, because if I had to put myself in your shoes, Minister, I would welcome an investigation by the Hawks, for instance. We all read this morning the media reports that the Hawks have seized some information from your previous personal assistant in Polokwane. And I'd like to know from the Minister, because everyone in this country has the right that you are innocent until proven guilty. So do you welcome this investigation? I think you would. And then also, because you are at the top of the pyramid, would you consider stepping aside? And I think that it would be pertinent for the person at the top of the pyramid to step aside while investigations like this is going on until you're either cleared or found otherwise. Because you can tell us that you won't interfere, but there will ultimately be an impact on proper investigation and prosecution if it's the person at the top being investigated and prosecuted. So I'd just like to know that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tanner. The step aside policy is a policy of the ANC. There is no such a thing in Parliament. But the Minister, of course, will feel free to answer that.
Chair, may I just respond quickly, Chair?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I'm not referring to the ANC's policy. I'm referring to a personal decision of the Minister because her integrity and the integrity of her department is at stake here. Thank you, Chair.
But you used a popular word. No, it's fine. Honorable Nomvalo.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I don't want to say the Minister has been evasive. We are all human beings, so I think she has forgotten to note and answer some of the questions. The question that I asked, Chair, relates to her relationship with Mr. Razinwane, who was the owner of the Gundo Wealth Solutions. I did not ask about how many times he met with the director of NPA, with the national director. So she got it wrong. I wanted her to note my question correctly. Then the second question that she has not responded to is a question that relates to the borrowing of the money from Mr. Rwazinane's company. I asked, when was this money borrowed? Was it borrowed after the withdrawal of the investment from VBS or before the withdrawal? Those are the questions that I wanted to remind the Minister of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nomvalo. You are correct, by the way. I heard you correctly as well as you said, and think the Minister just missed it and twisted the NPA instead of the name that you asked about. Honorable Mkhwebane.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think I didn't hear the Minister just clearly saying, considering that information going forward, how do you think you will handle the overseeing of NPA? But I would say to you, in this movie, with these characters, praise yourself. because you'll find more. Even don't be surprised when SARS contact you.
Yes, Honorable Mkhwebane, as long as you don't suggest that we are in a cinema. Honorable Trolip,
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question was not answered about whether the minister,
drag the mic towards you.
whether the minister made the declaration to BDO about her loan and business in 2018, 2019, when the investigation was taking place. Did she make a declaration to them about the loan or not?
Thank you. Honorable Minister, can you respond to those follow-up questions quickly?
Thank you very much. Maybe let me go through them one by one in the order that I've written them so that I don't jump others. Honorable Governor, the relationship, well, it pairs with the first part of Honorable Nomvalo's question. The relationship with Ralium. I do not have a personal relationship with Ralium. In fact, in the report, it does indicate, I may not be remembering which number it is or paragraph, that the relationship ended when we concluded the business. Yes, it's someone that now I have known, but I do not have a relationship with him that I constantly or engage. No, I do not have that type of a relationship. It was about the transaction that we are discussing, and that is the relationship that I had. Honorable, okay, she has gone out. I will pass her questions and come back. There is this top of the pyramid. At first, I thought when I was explaining, I did cover it, but maybe I must get into it. The top of the pyramid of the justice cluster. I think Glenys was the first one to say that, and Honorable Dano as well. I'm not very certain if that pyramid goes exactly as it is. It's a collaborative role of the JCPS cluster. It actually involves all the partners equally, so that is why others chair, it rotates. It's not standard that it is a Department of Justice story. I mean, in the past, I stand to be corrected. I think it was chaired by Defense, Honorable Modise, in the previous administration. So it's not a standard or a prescription, a prescriptive directive that it is Department of Justice. We are co-chairing with the SAPS Minister Mkhun, which means there is always an alternate as and when the function is supposed to happen this time around. I don't have a choice whether to be investigated or not. So definitely, Honorable Dan, I'll welcome it. Actually, I don't even have to be consulted, by the way. Police don't consult when they don't come to your door and say, "Hi, dear Medha, we're asking you to investigate you. Medha, I will come back." No, it doesn't. And it can't happen in this instance. I've just heard from you now about the raid. I'm not even aware about it. And if you look at it, a raid gets to be approved by a judge if it's a legal raid. So if I have this influence, the raid you're talking about shouldn't have happened. Shouldn't have happened. I don't know about it, but it shouldn't have happened. So I have this influence, this judge will say, "Oh, this minister, no, I can't raid." I don't think so. And it is at that level that I think really, yes, there could be some dotted lines, but they are not as firm and strong to suggest. But Honorable Trolip, why are you looking at me like you are my father? You know, you remind me of the other man who used to say, "Hey, he's sitting like this." No, it's on a lighter note. It's on a lighter note. No, you can look at me. There's no problem. It's on a lighter note. The sun shines even on difficult days. I think Honorable Mkhwebane, I take the warning, but I don't know what can I do. It's of interest to me as well that a matter that was closed so many years. But I'm told it's something one, as you are telling me, needs to welcome all the time and receive, and I will. And the guarantee I'm giving you is that I will, if you need me again, Honorable Dano, here for whatever thing, including this, you have my guarantee. I'll come back here and explain whatever that you think needs to be. The declaration with regard to BDO or the investigations were about my involvement in the appointment of Gundu and the influence I must have made. It was not about a loan. It was what was said, obviously, and one honorable member in the previous question said, we have never communicated or say anything outside. Maybe you could be responding to this period. But at the time, when I was mayor, it was an issue topical for all the 12 municipalities that had to respond, not only to the investigation, but also to the public. So I did. So the investigation here was, how did you as a municipality get to invest? What was your role? What was your role? What was your role in all the people who were? And I was also an executive mayor. I was taken through that. And the outcome is very clear that I contravened MFMA section 52, that is in writing. And I was then subjected to the clarification, or rather the remedial action that I was supposed to take, which I did. The Honorable Breitenbach is back now in the chair. I don't know Mzuzu, not unless I will know a person who has a company which is called Mzuzu, and I don't know he owns Mzuzu. But nothing clicks in mind about Mzuzu. I know Lungile. She was the owner of Recovet, and Recovet is where I bought the coffee shop. That's the only person I know on the names that you give. I don't know Simpiwe Nkambule. Nothing clicks. I have got no. T5 and Sylvanas, I was the directors. And I had a sister who was running it on a day-to-day basis. But I am the director, and I declare them as such. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for that precise responses to, as a third installment to the questions asked by members. Members, I think these are the important issues that we must note as a committee on justice and constitutional development, is that apart from scrutinizing the executive oversight role the minister has over NPA, but it is very important, and I think Honorable Mkhwebane has touched on this thing. It is very important that we as the committee conduct an aggressive oversight in relation to the prosecution of VBS matters. Including to that should be an aggressive oversight in relation to TRC matters. So beyond this, part of what we have learned, Mr. Swart, is that there is a need for us to lift, as part of our priorities, our oversight role in relation to the NPA and VBS matters. Members, I think we must note this, that it is not illegal to enter into a loan contract with either a natural or a juristic person, even if they are not a registered financial services provider. I can enter into a contract with Mr. Oscar Mataf. of a loan that he borrows me 10 rands can enter into a loan agreement with the Busisiwe Mkhwebane Incorporated Attorneys as a juristic person. It is really not illegal, but I think we appreciate the actual scrutiny to the fact that has there been an understanding and appreciation to the fact that there's been risks in soliciting such kind of loan or loan agreements from non-accredited service financial services providers. We are still going to have you, Minister, and NPA on Tuesday. You are coming to the committee to report on the access on Zondo Commission database. It's part of the things that we would have lined up as our committee program, but it was delayed by the fact that NPA indicated that they are executives that are dealing with the matter at hand are actually out of the country, so it had to delay. That's why it has been scheduled for Tuesday next week here in Cape Town. Members, I'm confident listening from your engagement and the robust discussions that you have done in this meeting that this committee is indeed in line in terms of Section 55, subsection 2, which actually is a provision empowering Parliament to make sure that the executive accounts to it. I think the appreciation goes to you members as to ensure that you have got fair but robust scrutiny to what would have been delivered as the report of the minister in relation to the allegations that had led us to call this meeting. And it is my belief, members, that you have displayed an utmost understanding of both Section 96 of the Constitution that deals with the conflict of interest and ethics of the executive members and the provision of Section 195 of the Constitution that deals with the role the minister plays over NPA. And in line with that, Section 33 of the NPA Act, that definitely deals with the role of the minister as it relates to NPA. We therefore will receive the legal opinion from both Parliament and the minister. We'll later circulate it to all members for their understanding and appreciation. Then the committee will therefore develop a report in regard to this specific matter. A report that says, after having called this meeting as the committee to make the minister account to Parliament, these are our observations in relation to what has been thoroughly discussed in the committee meeting. And members, I wish to appreciate you for actually displaying the passion for accountability, that you ensure that in a fair manner, the minister accounts not only to us, but to the people of South Africa at large. Because we'll all recall that this matter has been widely discussed by civil society. Minister, we wish to thank you and the Deputy Minister and the Director General of the Department of Justice for having come here in the time that we set for you to appear before the committee and strive the best you can to ensure that you have a detailed response to every question that is posed by members. Because you know yourself that it is upon you to ensure that accountability actually is pursued without any hindrance. So we'd like to appreciate the elaborative responses that you have given in relation to the matter. I have no doubt that it has actually capacitated the committee more in understanding what actually happened. Our role was actually to say, what happened? Come tell us and the people of South Africa what happened. And you'll remember I would have indicated at the start of the meeting that this is your first official platform where you are actually given a platform to actually explain yourself. And I'm sure even from your part, there is a certain little form of relief that you have been able to be afforded time to thoroughly give a detailed ABCs of what actually happened. We really appreciate that. The committee will therefore look into the solicited legal opinion by Parliament Legal Services. We are sure that you are also going to share with us what would have been your what would have been the advice from your counsels. But I think from our side, you are on record saying the money was repaid. You have given us the dates when the money was actually repaid. You have affirmed here in front of everyone that you don't only have financial statements from your bank account. You actually have financial statements to the accounts where the money was paid to. So it is with hope that to reflect when time is right, that this amount was repaid on this date. It was deposited from this account, from this bank to this account, and it reflects in both of them. So we wish to thank you and wish you well as you are still going to account to the president, as you are still going to go and account to your political organization. You have spoken about an integrity commission. So we wish you well on that. For now, as the committee will process the information already provided and the relative information that we're still going to get, then we'll develop a report and submit to the speaker. Thank you very much. We will recuse you for now. Then we'll take, oh, you are still with them as well. Are you?